3, 2, 1.
Saturday, May 28th, 2016. Live from Studio A at Portland Community Media. It's Presentation Nation. Tonight's show features a presentation by Soleil. Plus, Ross explains PowerPoint 2.0. And your host, Ross Brackett. Well, hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Presentation Nation. I am your host, Ross Brackett. Tonight, we've got an excellent show for you. Soleil is here. He's going to be presenting about Excel, data cleansing, and using Power Query. After that, stick around. I'll be continuing my series about early versions of PowerPoint with a presentation about PowerPoint 2.0 for Windows 3.1. It should be a great show, so stick around. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our first guest, Soleil. All right, if there was an audience here, they would say clap, 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 clap.
Yes, that's all right.
Here you go, sir.
Cool, thank you.
Yep. Do you want to tell us briefly about what it is that you'll be presenting about this evening?
Do I want to? I have a choice? No, so I am going to be talking about Excel, specifically data cleansing and a recent feature that's been added to Excel. It was called Power Query for a lot of years, and in Excel 2016 it's called Get and Transform.
Okay, awesome.
Right.
Well, I'm
Yep.
looking forward to it.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So I'm Soleil, and I am an Excel most valuable professional. There's 30 of us in the U.S., 100 in the world, and I'm 50% of the MVPs in Oregon. And what that means is Microsoft has noticed us as people who are good with Excel, and we're committed to developing community. Hence, I'm glad to do a show like this to get people knowing more about Excel and getting a better handle on their data. And I've been working with Excel for about 15 years, and it's been around battling crap data. This started when I was working at a company and customers kept calling these problems. And it always went back to the data being a mess. So for the past 15 years, I've been waging this battle, whooping crap data's ass every chance I could get. Because, somebody's professional license is on the line because something didn't get reported to their state. And I look and say, okay, you were supposed to report that. Why didn't you? Well, you were supposed to have graded that exam. Why didn't you? Well, everybody did what they were supposed to do. But what would happen? The person has 8 profiles in the database, and the system doesn't know to get them on the report list because it doesn't know that the person is in there 8 times. So I go in, I pull the data out of Excel, I clean it up in Excel, and I generate a different report, and I get the person reported, and their professional license is no longer in jeopardy. So, and I think this is important to talk about because there's a lot of conversation about big data, data visualization, dashboards, but with this issue around cleansing data, that is the essence of it all. None of this can happen with crap data. And the person whose license was in jeopardy, she wasn't looking for a dashboard. She just wanted to say, Ann Rosenberg finished this curriculum and I can get to keep my license. That's all she needed. But the data was a mess. So I've been beating this drum about getting data cleansed. And the Excel development team has been adding more tools to Excel to help with cleansing data. And I think that's important also because a lot of people don't know about these tools. And I was excited about a presentation I gave to some data scientists because, they use R and Python and a lot of things. And, Excel is like this thing that business people use because they don't know how to code. But I was able to show them different functions, different features in Excel that can help to, maybe clean the data that the client gives them before they pour it into Python. So I don't want to say that Excel can replace Python. They're two different tools, but that's the thing. They're just tools. So, all right, so I have some data here to show. And it suggests that, okay, we have a business that offers classes. And we want to know, okay, can we get a by city, by month view of the data just to compare? Well, we want to get a by state view. Okay, by state, and we have courses in Illinois, New York, Oregon, and several cities in each state. And this is a lot of times what happens. We'll get something that looks like a report. And you'll say, okay, maybe you go to the database admin and say, I need a by state, by monthly view of enrollments. Well, I can get you that report next week. Well, next week won't work. Well, I've got a report where the data is, and if you want to fish it out, you can, if you know how. And a lot of times I'd find myself in this situation, say, okay, give it to me. And then how do you deal with this? Because what's happening, can I move over there? Is it going to be an audio?
Not easily, yeah.
Okay. So we've got an issue here where how do we look at Illinois? How do we look at New York or Oregon so that we can get totals? So you got Chicago here and East St. Louis here, then New York, Albany, Buffalo, then Bend, Salem, and Portland. Any ideas how to peel this down? No? No ideas? No ideas? Anybody got it? Okay. But you understand the challenge. You see the challenge that we're up against. Yeah. So, all right. So I'm going to put this into a table because tables help to tie our data together once we're done. Okay. So I'm going to add this to a table. Table does have headers. Yes, it does. Okay. So now I'm going to go to get and transform because somehow I've got to get these states separated out. And I've got to get this data in such a way to where I can recombine it later. Okay. Data from table. Now there is our Power Query editor. Okay, good. With this highlighted, I'm going to change this to just a date. I don't need that time in there. Good. Now, I'm going to do what's called an unpivot because this looks like an Excel pivot table the way it's set up right now. So with this course dates column highlighted, right click, unpivot other columns. Now I can start doing some math with this. If I wanted to just get a sum of everything at the bottom of this column, I could do it. The way it was set up before, I couldn't. Okay, so now, how do I separate these cities from the states? we have to consider that, say, Chicago is one word, New York is 2 words, East St. Louis, 3 words. Okay? So with this column highlighted, we can right-click, split column by delimiter. And what is the delimiter we want to separate by? That is the space. And we want to separate it at the rightmost. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. See, when you don't see, there's a feature called text to columns in native Excel, but it would split every damn thing apart. And then you have to have some strategy between, I can separate them and then put them back together a certain kind of way, but with Power Query, also called Get and Transform, is done. All right, so I'm gonna name this city, okay? And notice over here under applied steps, they're being recorded, okay? So that we can automate this whole process. All right, so we've got our value here, we've got our state separated, let's call it state, and then you'll notice that over in the editor, it's gonna rename this. So state, let's just put it as just ST, that's fine. Okay, so we rename, now if I X this, see it goes back. Okay. Now I'm gonna load this to my workbook. There's the data in a way that's useful. And we didn't write any formulas or anything. We didn't highlight and move some stuff around and retype anything. All right. Now, here's the sexy part. Insert a pivot table. Boom. Now, state. We can put state, say, let's put the states in columns. And then our values here, and maybe put our course dates here in the rows. Oh, now we're seeing some stuff. Okay, now let's expand that. Now we've got these monthly, year, quarterly views, whatever we want. Okay, we can look at this all kinds of ways now. We could even make this, put the city here. Okay, and then change the format, design, and make this tabular. So now we could even look at, Albany, all the details about Albany. We can get so much data now. And then, now see, what if this was the old way, right? So if you had started with this data, okay, and then you have some formulas, or you're retyping, and then somebody says, I got some more data. You're killing me. Oh, and then you run it through your formulas and everything, whatever you do. But with tables and Power Query, I'm just going to add this to the table. Right, so there's a couple of more dates, and then here's another city. Okay, just bring this over, have the table absorb it. Okay, so now it's a matter of right-click, refresh this query. Now you see Utah is in there. The new dates are in there. Go to our pivot table, refresh the pivot table. We got our data.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. For my day job, I do a lot of work in Excel, and then cleaning up as much as I can, and then exporting to Perl, or exporting and then processing data via Perl. But this is awesome to think about in terms of being able to process the data, especially ugly data in Excel in some interesting ways. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's great, Oz. Thank you so much
Thanks.
for coming out today, and let's give Oz a round of applause here.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
All right.
All right. Well, that was a great presentation by Oz, and I thank him again for coming out here. Well, we have one other quick presentation that we'd like to do before we run out of time. Looks like we still got a little bit of time here. And what that is you may have noticed that our opening today had sort of an antiquated look to it. Let's hope it comes up here in just a second. Oh, there we go. As you can see, we're sort of have an antiquated graphics look to it. That's because today's opening sequence was done in PowerPoint 2.0 for Windows 3.1. So as part of my series exploring antiquated versions of PowerPoint, I'd like to open up that program a little and briefly here and show you some of the features and compare it to what is available now and what was available in PowerPoint 1.0. If you missed my presentation about PowerPoint 1, go back and watch the last episode of Presentation Nation. So in order to load up such an antiquated version of PowerPoint 2.0, it's from 1990. And in contrast, the original version was released in 1987. So this is 3 years later and on the Windows platform. So in order to make it work, I can't just install this program because it's a 16-bit application for Windows 3.1. I can't just install this on my system. So instead, I use the program DOSBox, which is basically allows you to emulate a virtual PC, and it can run within it Windows 3.1. So that's what we're doing here. So as you can see, I have already installed PowerPoint into Windows. If we have a little bit of time here at the end, I'll show you how to set this up on your own computer if you're interested in playing around with this. But let's open up PowerPoint really quickly here. So if you remember from the previous episode, this initial window here looks virtually identical to the previous program. And in terms of the functionality that's available, it is more or less the same program. What's new is that you can import new file formats into PowerPoint, and there's an extended collection of full color clip art that was simply not available in the original version. The original version of PowerPoint couldn't handle color at all, but as we'll see, this version is able to handle full color images just fine. So let's take a quick look at the presentation that we had here at the beginning of the show. Oops. So here we go. And as you can see, the basic elements work in essentially the same way. We have text boxes and graphics boxes, and there's not a whole lot that you can do. There's no animation that's built in to this program, and there's no way to trigger individual elements within a single slide. It's basically the same as before. You can create a series of slides, put them in order, and then cycle through them. So let's take a quick look at some of the clip art files that shipped with this version of PowerPoint. Some of them are very trippy. So here under clip art, there's one in particular that was blowing my mind, which is People 1. Let's take a quick look here just to sort of see what default art shipped with this program. So here we have an interesting picture of a man being choked by an old-timey computer. A guy with a giant mouth and chin on a tightrope, an angry guy. There's just a lot of very sort of bizarre and surreal images that came along with this strange image. A vulture that just ate something. So it sort of gives you a basic idea of what was available there. Well, we still got some time, so let's Let's also just take a quick look then at if you wanted to play around with PowerPoint at home, PowerPoint 2.0 at home and Windows 3.1 at home, how would you do it? Okay, so we have this program DOSBox. That's the first most important thing to get if you want to do Windows emulation. So let's see if, in fact, here if we can start. Let's just start from scratch, and we'll take a look at how this would work. So if you start DOSBox up, it has a copy of what is, I believe, called FreeDOS. I'm not sure if that's still what it's called. That's automatically installed. And if we look at my PC here, we have prepped a directory called DOSBox FS. Now, what is this? This is a download. If you search the web for the phrase Windows 3 for DOSBox, the first or second link that comes up will be what is essentially a full, complete packaged version of Windows 3.1 that you can just drag into a directory. As you can see, I've created a directory called DOSBox FS, and I just dragged everything into there wholesale. It came with everything except for PowerPoint here. So let's go through the process of mounting this folder into DOSBox and then loading up Windows. So you can use the mount command, C, similar to Unix, but instead of a path location, it's a drive. And then you specify the actual location on your file system where it goes. So, DOSBox FS. Okay, so now we have a C drive, which we did not have before, and there is a shortcut program. Normally you just type win to run Windows, but because there wasn't a proper startup, we'll type run this, and this will load the sound card driver and start up Windows 3.1. There we go. So let's say that we wanted to install PowerPoint. So unfortunately, it's not quite as easy as I would hoped. So let's take a look here. If you want to find PowerPoint 2.0, the way you search for that is Microsoft PowerPoint 2.0 download, and you can find an abandoned version from Microsoft of Microsoft's original install media for PowerPoint. So let's take a quick look at what that looks like. Here it is, downloaded here. It's a 7-zip file. So what this is 4 disk images. So if I copy these images into this directory here, pnation, and I copy the contents of, it's maybe not the best file system organization, but I'll also just copy the contents of Windows 3 for DOSBox into that same directory, okay? And then we will load up DOSBox while we're waiting for that to happen. Same thing. We will mount the C drive to this pnation directory that I've created. Okay, great. So now we have Windows, but what we don't have is PowerPoint. Oh, and they put in a weird background. It as it originally came, with a weird Windows CE joke built into the wallpaper here from whoever made this distribution. Okay, so there's no PowerPoint. So how do we install PowerPoint on this system? It's a series of floppy disks. So what we need to do is mount those disks as a floppy disk. So the way that you do that is image mount a drive to c:/disk1.ima. -t type floppy. Okay, great. So now the A drive is the disk 1 of the install. So a:/setup. For any of you who remember what that used to be like, and we'll say using defaults. Okay, great. Sure, I don't care. So, now it's time to do disk 2 of 4. So I'm sure all we have to do is Alt-Tab over to back to Program Manager and swap out the disk. Well, Alt-Tab doesn't work using DOSBox because that command is always given precedence to the operating system. So that by hitting Alt-Tab, I instead am Alt-Tabbing on my computer and not this virtual emulated PC. So what I will do is say, okay, no, that's not going to work. And I will exit out of the install. Let's see if I can grab it there. Yes. The trick to actually being able to install PowerPoint onto the system is to remap, the Alt key to another key on the keyboard. So as you can see on the screen here, I can activate the key mapper by hitting Control F1. And the key mapper doesn't work exactly the way that you would think. It sort of works the opposite. So the Alt key is what I want access to that I don't have access to. So what I'll do is I'll delete the binding here on the Alt key, and I will add a binding of the small enter key. So that's saved now. I can exit. I can go back to Windows. So now I should have the ability using small enter tab to be able to Alt tab back and forth. Okay, so now we have a rudimentary Alt tab. And we still got another minute here. So I won't show you exactly how it works because we're running out of time, but you can do image mount a disk a:/p_nation/disk1.ima-t floppy. So I can do that. I can then go back into Windows, start the install. Okay, great. Then we get to this screen here, insert disk 2. So I can hit small enter tab. Oh, we're back here in Program Manager. I can run command com. I can repeat the same command, except now I can mount the second disk. a:/disk2.ima-t floppy. Floopy. Okay, running low on time. Okay, and I can exit back. I can hit Alt Tab. To set up. I can hit Enter. Oh, well, it should work. Anyway, that's the gist of it. We're running out of time here, so what I'd like to do quickly is I'm gonna have to go into here to get to the end. Oh yeah, we're out of time. This program was produced through the facilities of Portland Community Media, Portland, Oregon, 2016. That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to Presentation Nation. We'll be taking a break this summer, but we'll be back in a few months. Thanks.